This is my tutorial for the month of April. This piece was very plain, so what I'm doing right now, it's just adding some wood to bend molds because it's easier than create molds with resin. All you need to do is apply heat and it will make the piece to bend and shape the way you want. I measure across the front because I decide I will put the mold right in the middle. I had a design in mind for this piece, so I needed it to be exactly as I pictured it. So now I select the colors that I want to use and I use my water misting, just adding a little bit of water on my paintbrush, and I start like kind of dabbing. I'm not using a lot of paint because this is my first coat, and I still at this point I'm not so sure what color I want to add next. I wanted soft colors for the center of the piece because I wanted to have a lot of light. As you can see, my brush has a little bit of paint. I'm not using a lot of paint, just a little bit, and also I am combining the cream color with blue. The reason I'm doing that is because once you apply the first color and then you start using a second color, your brush already has a bit of color you previously applied, so that creates a third color. That's the only reason why I like to blend my colors using the same brush, especially in this case because I was using two colors, Louis blue and Napoleonic blue. It was still a little bit of the cream color, which it will be released once you start applying more water to the brush, and I continue painting with the Napoleonic blue just around the frame of my drawers. I'm not using a lot of paint, just a little bit, because I don't want to wait too much for it to dry. So I kind of went to the half and back and forth using the Napoleonic blue. For my other two colors, I decide to use another paintbrush. Usually I wouldn't, but because this is a tutorial, I want to have the perfect blend of the two colors. I'm using Scandinavian pink and burgundy. So I started with pink and add burgundy, like almost like if I was feathering my burgundy over my Scandinavian pink, and I went all around my wood to bend molds. I'm not applying a lot of strength when I'm doing this because burgundy, it's a really bright color. Light, as you can see, my brush has a little bit of paint. I'm not using a lot of paint, just a little bit, and also I am combining the cream color with blue, Scandinavian pink and burgundy. So I started with pink and add burgundy, like almost like if I was feathering my burgundy over my Scandinavian pink. So I'm going to be doing the same as I did at the front of my piece, which was my light blue and Napoleonic blue in a circle of motion, almost like if I was just barely touching the piece. I go back and forth with the two colors, but just feathering, almost like if I'm not putting in much effort. I start again using a little bit of paint because I already had a lot of blue on my brush. As I painted the other side, I start using the light blue. Now I'm using the cream color and then the light blue, and then I will use my Napoleonic blue. I continue with the same pattern that I did on the other side. I changed my brush, my pink, a little bit of water. I already used it with a little bit, so what I wanted to do is just clean it as much as I can so I can have a perfect coat of pink, and continue doing the same circular motion like feathering. I'm not applying a lot of pressure over the piece because I want it to be more subtle, blended. I go back and forth with the two colors, but just like feathering, almost like if you were not doing much effort from there. I'm going to start just adding a little bit of my darker color, which in this case is the burgundy, and I'm just like almost nothing on it, which will allow my brush to have some color but not too much. Also cleaning the brush after adding paint on my towel. The reason I'm doing this is because this color is too bright, and I want to keep my piece in harmony, as you can see. Not a lot of color, I'm not using a lot of paint, and I go back and forth just trying to imitate the other side of the piece. So I did the same with the bottom of the piece. I knew I needed to do something fun, so I decided to use my cream all around it, like if it was a belt around my furniture. So I will have a clean canvas and I can do a fun pattern. As this piece was inspired by Alice in Wonderland, I wanted to do something fun, but at the same time, I wanted my piece to tell a story. I'm using pink, but I also like to cover the back of the piece. I feel like if you paint the back as well, it's a better presentation of your work. So now I move on to the front, and what I'm doing here is trying to create a whimsical design. Yeah, it took me a little bit, but finally managed to do the squares. Really wasn't measuring. I was just using the ruler as a guide. I wanted to do a different pattern for one of the sides, as my piece is telling a story. I want my other side to be completely different. What I'm doing here is marking the squares that are going to be black. It is an easier way to know what color goes in each square. So I finally have my design of the front. It took me forever. Of course, I had myself so much work trying to do the design, but anyways, it turned out so amazing. So no regrets. It took me a while, especially because of the edges of the drawers. If you walk back and look, there were some space that didn't even look like squares, so I had to go back and fix that. I used the same technique, marking every other square to indicate that the square has to be black. And I was thinking of doing it all the way down to the legs, but at the end I just changed my mind. I wanted it to be more unified, so I only did the bell, which I'm calling, obviously it's not a bell, but the part of the base. So I decided to hand paint those flamingos instead. And while I was doing that, I decided to move on and do the pink with burgundy with the same brush again, but then I thought it was too bright, so I decided to add some more like a dry brush technique using my pink, but I felt like I needed more color. It was looking cool, but I needed some blue, which at the end I just add more work to myself because I end up covering everything with a new design, which I think it looks much better. I added some of my burgundy and my pink because it was still a little bit fresh, which was perfect because I could mix the three colors and actually get like a lilac color, which it was really pretty. So now it took me forever to get the squares. I didn't want to ruin it. I'm using painter's tape. Also, I knew what kind of design from my Alice in Wonderland transfer I was going to use. I decided to go and do the outline around it. So I didn't paint it black because once you use the transfer it will show the colors underneath, and I didn't want that. So while the top was getting dry, I decided to start working on the pattern that I was going to do next to my flamingos. The reason I did the flamingos was because I thought the big legs could be the neck. They were very similar, but at the end, I just didn't want to do the feathers. I wanted to be more like easy for anyone, as it is a tutorial. I had to put a bee just to make sure that I was painting every other square or shape black. I didn't want to do a transfer to cover, so I added light color using my cream color. I had to add as well, again, my lighter color, which was my color cream, and just mix the three colors that I was using it before, just to create that kind of depth on the flamingos, as their feathers are kind of orange pink, but I didn't have any orange on my piece because I didn't want to add another extra color, as this piece will be very busy. Once applying the transfer, I just wanted to keep it classy. I move on and had to put the drawers down and paint the white, while I add so much work to myself just doing the blending, which at the end, of course, I changed my mind and decided to do this pattern, but that's okay. This little one really had a lot of work, especially when you do squares. Do you want them to be perfect? Well, never be perfect because of so many reasons. Shape of the drawers, size of the squares, and because of the way that I paint them. Because of the drawers, that they're just different. But I knew that they would look so good with the transfer, and it would be a cool design. For the design, first I measure and I make sure that I was using the middle to start with the first color, and as well I painted previously, adding a mark for the black and leave the ones that are white with no lines, so I knew where to go when I started. I wanted to do something fun as well for this one, as I did for the other side. I just tried to make it different. I decided to add some redesign moldings using resin. At the end, I didn't use the key moldings, but I did use the watches. I just started doing some more blending so the legs were in harmony with the body. I didn't want the legs to be just pink because I thought that it wouldn't look so cool. I just wanted to look kind of funky and tell a story. I started mixing my darker blue with the pink, and I really just doing some feathering, almost like if I was doing the dry brush technique again. And I went all over the legs, mixing those two colors, giving me a really nice color, almost like lavender. So again, I started doing the pink, I add more blue. Really, this just depends of your taste. It's something that you might want, just leave it or just keep it blue. It really doesn't matter. I just wanted to have like little boots, or almost like if she was wearing socks on it. Then I thought of doing stripes, but my piece is way too busy. I just tried to keep it simple, so I went with the same color all around the sides and the black, because I wanted to be uniform the whole design. So I started blending with a little bit of water, just a little bit of paint, just misting my brush a little bit, because it helps the paint to flow and it blends much better than if you are doing everything in dry. So I'm not putting a lot of paint. When I thought it was too much, I just go back and cover it with the pink. And then with the blue, so it wasn't really that bright because I didn't have the burgundy as bright at the front. So then I did another design and I moved to the other side, which it will tell a different story, but inside the same fairy tale. I did the same bee for the black, and I just create different design inside the frame. These ones are wood jubin frames. I wanted to make it look like if they were doors. Obviously, it took some time because I had to go back and forth and fix it. But at the end, it turned out really, really pretty. So I spent too much time doing the squares on the piece. The front, that I forgot that with the transfer will be seen through, so I decided to add a bit of light color. I select the design that I was gonna add at the front of the piece. I needed to have something big, so I choose the one which Alice is next to the clock and the cat on top. And I thought it was a cool design, and I was perfect, especially for the molding. So I kind of tried to get the cat in there. Obviously, I had glue just a little bit, and I cleaned it with my towel, and whatever was left on my brush, I started just applying it, and I saw that it still was too dark, so I decided to move on and use the cream color. And I did dry it off and clean it and apply my transfer. The reason I was doing that is because the transfer is kind of dark, and I want it to be very visible. It's at the front of the piece, so because I painted much of the blue, I had to go back and repaint the squares. It was just a matter of select what design I was going to put, and that takes time. You try to cover all the space, so in one side I put the transfer, and then the other side I put the other. I used the transfers of Alice in Wonderland and mixed the designs across the whole piece to create something fun. That's why I put Alice in the frame. Like if she was holding something, then I wanted to put the clocks and then the teapot, just to make it fun, and then more and more. Then I saw that I could put the Alice over there because my background wasn't that dark. I did have to add another color, so I added more of the transfer design, also the cat and the Mad Hatter, and I wanted to do another Alice in the middle by holding the flamingo, because at the front we had the flamingos, so people will be like, where is she getting those flamingos from? So I just wanted it to look more uniform. So yeah, I go back and repaint the white, adding more work to myself because it's fun. So I had some flowers and then a crown, and continued added more and more of the transfer as I had my piece in here, and I needed to make sure that the piece of the transfer that I was going to use on the top of my piece, it was in the middle, so I could just kind of create out some design and don't go over with the black around where I was gonna use the transfer. I should have probably had it done in white, but I didn't, so I let it dry. Obviously, there's so many little details that needed to be fixed when you're doing this kind of designs, because if you move, sometimes they don't make any sense. So I didn't want it to look weird, but I also didn't want it to look perfect, because it is just not a perfect piece. It's just a fun piece. So I kind of struggle with that one because I wanted to add one flamingo at the front as well. So I wanted to cover everything with the transfer. So I cut the butterfly just at half, then kind of add the other half on the other side, and then another butterfly. Then I'm just using just like a pad, just to make sure that my transfer doesn't have any bubbles and it's applied correctly on it. And it has been fun process. It's a lot of transfer. I had to drill new holes for the new hardware. I used wooden knobs painted black, adding more red design moldings on the top to make them look fun, and then add a frame in one just to make it different. I used another mold that had a rabbit, so I just kind of painted like a red coat with the white on it and the blue background. But I did that with the color waxes. I saw that I still have some space, so I tried to cover as much as I could with the remain of the transfer. Maybe I didn't make sense, but I just wanted to get the piece to look busy. For the top, once it was dry, I did a little bit of light standing. I had my transfer and then I covered the black and white, so I tried to make it look fun as well, like if they were really having a tea party. Added the rabbit and then the cat and the weird designs that it was just there. I just want to use as much as fun as possible. I began my piece with sealing my piece with clear wax. This is very important when you're using colorful waxes like gilding waxes. You want to wax your piece first before adding any color waxes. The reason is that the clear wax will remove the color waxes, so you want to do your clear and black wax first. I'm using a detailing brush for my black wax, going around trying not to add too much black because my piece was already with a lot of black on it. I'm using the chalk paste in metallic from Red Design, which it leaves this beautiful sheen. This one is a metallic acrylic and it's really nice. I'm using some of the gilding waxes from Red Design as well, and I'm going all over doing my clear wax and black wax. Then I'm just using the Red Design waxes, and that's the reason why I wanted to keep my knobs black, because they kind of pop when you add the color waxes, especially if they are metallic. It's just perfect. I used pink and blue. I wanted to do the same colors that I used to paint my piece on my wood paint molding, so I went around and I did the same color. But using metallic around the edges of the face, and then they had the hardware there was going to be on the sides. This hardware was already on the sides of the piece, so I didn't have to do holes. I thought it was a good idea just to use the same color set, that's some pink and some blue, which I was doing with the metallic around the wood band. I wanted to do some of the drawers as well with the hardware that was gonna go on each side. I don't know if you can really put it from there. I start doing the same with the sides. I use the same colors, the same color waxes, just to keep the same color palette also, because the transfer is kind of see-through. I went again and repaint the hair, the flamingo, the mushroom, the dress, and everything that could be painted. I used a gold gilding wax marker around the letters, which I kind of regret doing that. Applied clear and black wax, but before my gilding waxes, then painted the watch gold and used different color waxes for the rest of the transfer. Put more blue in it. The hookah I painted blue as well, like it has water, but then I realized that it was kind of like a too blue, and then I was okay, I'm just gonna continue doing the dress and kind of move with my finger a little bit. I did as well more gilding wax on the rabbit jacket, combined another blue for the parts, so using the same color wax so they kind of match, and then a yellow wax on her hair because it was just too dark. you couldn't really see that she was blonde. Around the furniture, and then it was time for the top, and I did some clear wax and wipe off the excess. I didn't add so much black on it because I needed to see if I really wanted to add the black wax or not. I went for the color waxes all around Alice and the table. Here's the final result. I also added some gold wax on the legs just to get in the harmony with the rest of the piece, and overall I think this piece looks really pretty. It was a lot of work, but it was totally worth it. Let me know if you have any other questions about this piece.